Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. And today we're going to be, we're tackling a pretty big topic, cybersecurity readiness. I mean,
Yeah.
it's always top of mind, especially, if you're prepping for a meeting or trying to catch up on the field or just generally, curious. We've got a report here that we're going to be kind of dissecting about incident response and proactive cybersecurity services. And yeah, I'm excited to kind of dig into this with you and figure out, I guess, regardless of your level of expertise, what you really need to know.
One of the things that I found really fascinating in this report is how much they emphasize speed. In
Uh-huh.
cybersecurity, it really is all about, how quickly you can respond.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, every second counts, right, when you're talking about like a cyber attack or something like
Yeah.
that. So let's say hypothetically, you get hit with a cyber attack.
Yeah.
What does that rapid response actually look like?
Well, so, just imagine for a second that you've got a dedicated team of cybersecurity professionals. Like you've got, your incident responders, your consultants, your threat analysts, all ready to basically jump in at a moment's notice. And we're not talking about like a vague promise of help here. This report talks about how you can get guaranteed 2-hour response time. That means within 2 hours of an incident, you've got experts on the ground. They're assessing the situation, they're starting to take action.
Wow, 2 hours. That's incredible. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm thinking about like all the chaos that comes with a cyber attack, right? You're
Mm.
you're probably, scrambling to figure out contracts and approvals and who to even call. So how does that work? I mean, is that realistic?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that this report highlights, having those pre-negotiated rates and terms in place with a company like StoneFly, that means you're not scrambling for paperwork when you're already, under attack.
Yeah.
Everything's already laid out so the focus can stay on containing the threat.
All right, so you're not wasting time with the administrative stuff. You can just get right to it. That's
Yeah.
huge. I mean, that could be a lifesaver for a business, but it sounds like, Stonefly services go beyond just reacting to an emergency.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's not just about cleaning up the mess afterwards.
Hmm.
It's about building strength and resilience before anything happens.
Okay, I like that analogy. So it's like you wouldn't wait for your house to be robbed before installing a security system, right?
Exactly. It's about being proactive, building that security system for your data, your systems, your entire business.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So what does that proactive security system look like in the digital world? What are we talking about here?
Well, they offer a range of services to bolster your defenses.
Yeah.
For instance, they've got penetration testing, which is essentially, they have ethical hackers who will try to break into your systems.
Oh, wow. So like a controlled breach.
Exactly. Just like a real attacker would. But the goal here is to find those vulnerabilities before the bad guys do.
That's pretty intense, but
Yeah.
I can see how that would be valuable. What else are we talking about on that proactive side?
Well, another big one is cloud security assessments. With more and more businesses moving their data and operations to the cloud, you really have to make sure that those environments are secure. So, they dive deep into your cloud infrastructure, looking at configurations, access control, security policies, basically making sure that there are no gaps in your cloud defenses.
Yeah, the cloud is powerful, but it definitely opens up, a whole new can of worms when it comes to security. So it
Yeah.
sounds like, Stonefly is well equipped to navigate that complexity.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting in this report is, it's not just about having the right tools and technologies, right? You have to have the expertise to use them effectively. And it's clear that they're dedicated to helping businesses build a truly robust cybersecurity posture.
It's not just about reacting to threats. It's about preventing them in the first place. And that seems to be, a key part of their philosophy. But I think we need to take a quick pause here. When we come back in part two, I want to dive a little deeper into those proactive services and really see, how they work in practice.
Welcome back. So, are you ready to dig a little deeper into how StoneFly helps businesses, kind of get ahead of the curve when it comes to cybersecurity?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm especially curious about those proactive services that we were talking about before. Um, can we break those down a little bit further? Like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah, sure. So, we touched on penetration testing earlier, and I think it's really helpful to kind of visualize it as like having your own team of, ethical hackers, right?
Yeah.
But they're working for you, not
Like,
against you.
they're on your side.
Exactly. And they're using, the same techniques and tools that like a real attacker would use, right?
Yeah.
They're probing your systems, they're looking for weaknesses. But the difference is the goal here is to find those vulnerabilities so you can fix them before a malicious actor exploits them.
Okay, so you're basically trying to find the weak points in your defenses before the bad guys do. But what happens once you've found those weak points? What's the next step?
Right. Well, that's where I think StoneFly's expertise really comes in. They don't just, point out the problems and then walk away.
Yeah.
They actually provide you with very detailed remediation guidance. So it's kind of like, if you go to the doctor and the doctor diagnoses you with an illness, but then they also give you a treatment plan.
Right. They don't just say like, "Hey, you're sick. Good luck."
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're with you every step of the way. They help you understand, the risks associated with each vulnerability, how to prioritize fixes, and then how to actually implement those security controls to plug those gaps.
Right. So it's like a very hands-on approach, which is great. I mean, that level of support is really valuable. And we also talked about cloud security assessments earlier. Can you walk me through like what's involved in that process?
Yeah. So, cloud security it's like a constantly evolving landscape, right? And
Yeah.
it's really easy to make mistakes or overlook potential risks. So what they do is they come in with, a deep understanding of cloud platforms and security best practices, and they really scrutinize every aspect of your cloud infrastructure. We're talking about configurations, user access, data encryption, incident response plans. They're basically making sure that you're not leaving any doors open for attackers.
Wow. That sounds incredibly thorough.
Mm.
I can imagine the findings from those assessments could be pretty eye-opening for a lot of businesses.
Oh, yeah, they can be. But that's the value of, taking this proactive approach, right?
Right.
About getting a very clear, unbiased view of your security posture. And then, identifying those areas for improvement before something goes wrong. It's all about peace of mind.
I have peace of mind.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it. And speaking of peace of mind, we live in a world where technology is constantly evolving. New threats are emerging all the time. So how does a company like StoneFly stay ahead of the curve? How do they keep up with all that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's one of the most important things to consider when you're looking for a cybersecurity partner. So StoneFly, they invest very heavily in research and development, and they have a dedicated team of threat intelligence analysts who are constantly monitoring the landscape. So they're tracking new malware strains, they're analyzing attack trends, and they're developing proactive strategies to stay one step ahead of the bad guys.
So they're not just relying on like yesterday's knowledge, they're constantly updating their playbook, so to speak.
Exactly. It's an ongoing process. Learning adaptation, it never stops.
Right. So it's like a living, breathing thing.
Mm.
And it sounds like they're really committed to being a true partner for businesses in this whole, ever-changing world of cyber threats.
Yeah, I mean, that partnership aspect is something that this report really emphasizes. Cybersecurity is not a one-size-fits-all solution, right? It's about finding the right partner who understands your specific needs, your industry, your risk tolerance. And it sounds like StoneFly really excels at, tailoring their services to each client's unique situation.
This has been so insightful. I mean, we've talked about the speed of their response, the depth of their expertise, their proactive approach,
Hmm.
their commitment to staying ahead of the curve. But let's bring it back to the listener for a second. Why should someone care about having a proactive cybersecurity strategy? Like, what's the bottom line here?
I mean, the short answer is because the consequences of not being prepared, they can be absolutely devastating. We're talking about data breaches, financial losses, reputational damage, the list goes on and on. A proactive cybersecurity strategy is not just an IT issue, it's a business imperative.
It's about protecting your assets, your
Yeah.
reputation, your entire operation. Yeah, I mean, it's critical stuff, but let's not get too overwhelmed here. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back to wrap things up with some key takeaways and some actionable advice, some things that people can actually do. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into cybersecurity.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot, but I really want to make sure that you walk away with like some actionable takeaways, things you can actually use.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's distill all this down into, something practical.
Perfect. So
Yeah.
first things first, it seems pretty clear that simply reacting to cyber attacks, that's just not enough anymore.
Right. You're absolutely right. The threats that are out there are they're too sophisticated, they're too frequent, and frankly, they're too costly to just sort of sit back and wait for something to happen.
You have to be proactive. And that means, having a really solid cybersecurity strategy in place before an incident occurs. And finding the right partner to help you build that strategy, that seems really critical.
Yeah.
And we've talked a lot about StoneFly today, and it sounds like, they offer a really comprehensive suite of services.
Yeah, they do. They cover all the bases, from penetration testing to cloud security assessments to incident response. They can help you identify vulnerabilities, strengthen your defenses, and respond effectively if an incident does occur. And I think what's really impressive is their commitment to staying ahead of the curve. They
Right.
have that threat intelligence team that's constantly monitoring, the threat landscape. So, you're getting the most up-to-date protection.
It's almost like having, your own cybersecurity brain trust, right?
Mm.
Working behind the scenes to keep your data safe,
Mm.
but technology is only part of the equation, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Cybersecurity isn't just an IT issue. It's a company-wide responsibility. Everybody needs to be on board. And it seems like StoneFly really understands that, and they help businesses, cultivate a culture of cybersecurity awareness. So it's about empowering every employee, from the CEO all the way down to the intern, to be the first line of defense.
That's so important. Creating a mindset where everyone understands the importance of cybersecurity and their role in protecting sensitive data. So as we wrap up here, let's leave our listeners with, one final thought to kind of chew on. We've talked a lot about the need for a proactive approach, but the threat landscape is always shifting, right?
Yeah.
So what does the future of cybersecurity look like, and how can businesses prepare for what's coming?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, right? It's hard to say exactly what new threats are going to emerge, but we can kind of look at the trends and anticipate that cyber criminals are going to continue to exploit emerging technologies like AI and machine learning. They're going to use those to launch even more sophisticated attacks.
So vigilance and adaptation are key.
Absolutely, and that's where having a partner like StoneFly can really make all the difference because they're constantly evolving their services.
Mhm.
They're staying ahead of those trends so you can focus on running your business.
We hope this deep dive has given you some, valuable insights and practical advice to kind of help you navigate this really complex world of cybersecurity. And if you're ready to take your cybersecurity to the next level and build a really strong defense, we highly recommend checking out StoneFly. You can visit their website at www.stonefly.com or reach out to their sales team at sales@stonefly.com to learn more. They've got the expertise, the experience, and they're dedicated to helping you keep your data safe in this ever-changing threat landscape.
Thanks for joining us today.
Until next time.